Name is Eyvind Elstad. I will now walk through the main ideas behind our studies on retrieval-augmented generation, RAG, as an institutionally governed AI infrastructure in school professionals' master thesis work. So this presentation reports on multiple methods case study carried out in the master program in educational leadership at the University of Oslo, Norway. The program recruits part-time professionals, school leaders and teachers who must complete a master thesis while working in demanding roles. Our central question is how universities can leverage RAG as a program-specific, ethically governed AI infrastructure that supports thesis work, which upholding an academic integrity and aligning with the curriculum. This work is co-authored by Eyvind Elstad and Dag Yngve Dale, both from the University of Oslo. Let me start with the context of the problem. In Norway, as in many other countries, part-time master students increasingly use AI tools in their academic work. They do so because these tools are convenient. They help them generate ideas, clarify concepts, and sometimes even draft text. In our educational leadership program, these students are typically experienced school professionals with limited time, and many of them face challenges in progressing steadily with their thesis. So delayed thesis completion and attrition have been long-standing issues. The university has responded by introducing structured training in AI-supported thesis work. This currently most AI use is based on commercial chatbots. This practice creates tensions. On the one hand, students experience clear utility. On the other hand, they and their supervisors worry about hallucinations, unverifiable references, blurred lines between assistance and authorship. So our study asked, instead of leaving students to navigate generated AI tools on their own, what would it look like if the program itself provided a curriculum-grounded, institutionally governed RAG system as a central resource? And we are just now in the beginning of the construction of this RAG system. So to address that, we focus on retrieval-augmented generation, RAG. Technically, RAG couples a generative model with a retrieval layer, because answering the question, the system retrieves relevant documents from a curated corpus, and then generates a response conditioned only by those documents. This is different from a chatbot like ChatGPT that draws on advanced, opaque training set and may hallucinate freely. In our setting, the RAG corpus will include handbooks and guidelines from the program, institutional policies on academic integrity and AI use, compulsory and recommended core literature, selected open access research in educational leadership, and methodological guides commonly used in thesis supervision. So the conceptual framework brings together three strands: Diffusion, so innovations from is named a technology acceptance model, and constructive alignments. From diffusion of innovations, we are interested in how individual innovativeness and social diffusion may shape adoption of new tools. And we have used a survey model to center 3 antecedents of perceived utility in this study: technological innovativeness, which is students' dispositions to experiment with new technology. Secondly, perceived AI objectivity, the extent to which they see AI outputs as reliable and unbiased sources. And the third factor, collective drive, the sense that peers and faculty staff endorse and model AI use. We have also a qualitative material which add ethical nuance. Students actively distinguish between legitimate and illegitimate uses of AI, which they know well from their school practice. And they articulate criteria for responsible practice. We then ask, how could a program-specific RAG system intersect with these factors? How might it be designed to appeal to innovative students, reshape notions about objectivity around transparent sources, and strengthen collective drive by offering a shared institutional sanctions reference point? So the material and methods, empirically, we use a multiple method design. Quantitatively, we administer an anonymous paper-based questionnaire during compulsory teaching sessions. The data were entered into SPSS and analyzed with structural equation modeling aims. And the model fit was mostly acceptable. Qualitative, we conducted a 2-stage follow-up with a subsample of students after targeting training in research methods, AI tools, a literature discovery platform, and so on. Students first reflected on AI suitability for developing problem statements and research questions. Later, they reflected on using AI to analyze interview transcripts and to link empirical findings to the relevant literature. And open-ended responses from these exercises were condensed with the care to preserve core meanings and ethical nuances. Okay. Some quantitative findings. Let me summarize. You see here the example items. We used 3, 4, 5 indicators on each concept. So in the structural equation model, the technological innovativeness and perceived AI objectivity emerge as the strongest direct predictors of perceived AI utility. So the path coefficients here were beta 0.313 for technological innovativeness and almost the same for perceived objectivity. Both with they are significant factors. This tells us that students who are more inclined to experiment with technologies and who regard AI as a relative objective source tend to see greater usefulness for AI in their academic work. Collective drive, the sense that peers and faculty collectively engage in AI efforts, also had a positive but weaker direct effect. We can say a significant statistical association. The beta value was about 0.15. We also found positive associations among the predictors themselves. Collective drive was associated with the technological innovativeness. Beta was 0.18, and so on. So this paints a picture of a mutually reinforcing network of beliefs. Students who feel part of a collective AI effort are more innovative and more likely to see AI as an objective source, and vice versa. Okay, we also summarized the qualitative insights. The qualitative findings flesh out these patterns. Students generally portrayed AI as a helpful partner when it functions at the level of ideas and understanding. They value AI for brainstorming problem statements, refining research questions, and clarifying difficult theoretical concepts, and serving as a devil's advocate that challenges their assumptions. However, they also raised clear concerns. They reported hallucinated content, references that are difficult or impossible to verify, and an uneasy feeling that fluent AI-generated text can tempt them towards forms of copying that blur the line of thinking and learning. So, they described gray zones where they were unsure that the institution would regard as legitimate AI use. Importantly, students expressed a desire for clearer institutional guidelines. They did not want to hide their AI use. They wanted structured norms and tools that would allow them to use AI responsibly in ways that are recognized as legitimate and aligned with the assessment criteria. So now let us bring RAG into this picture. And we are now just in a process with developing a new stage in the research process. In our data, perceived AI objectivity is a major driver of utility. But currently, the sense of objectivity rests on shaky ground. Students often equate fluency and apparent consistency with factual reliability, even while they suspect bias and error. So a program-specific RAG system can re-anchor objectivity in transparent and inspectable sources. If responses are consistently accompanied by citations and links to underlying text, course readings, policy documents, and selected research, students can verify claims and situate them within familiar scholarly debates. Objectivity then becomes a relation between claims and evidence rather than a mystical property of the AI. So the institutional endorsement of an RAG assistant can also strengthen collective drive, we believe. When supervisors and course coordinators and students use of the same tool in supervision sessions, methods, workshops, and thesis seminars, AI use becomes a shared practice rather than a private experiment. And we try out these ideas now. The system can be deliberately configured into a to reinforce agreed norms. For instance, you're refusing to generate full thesis sections with offering guidance on structure, relevant literature, methodological options. In this way, ethical and pedagogical expectations are built into the infrastructure itself. From the standpoint of constructive alignment, RAG provides practical mechanisms from integrating AI into the core of this educational leadership program. Instead of AI being an optional, somewhat hidden add-on, we can try to align learning outcomes, teaching activities, and assessment tasks around documented critical use of the RAG system. Learning outcomes might specify that students should be able to use RAG Assistant to locate and interpret relevant literature, to connect empirical findings to the theoretical framework, and to critically assess AI output. So the teaching activities could include supervised RAG exercises. For instance, students might use RAG to explore methodological debates in the course literature. We have tried this idea, or to identify theory that are related to the empirical data. Assessment tasks could require them to document specific RAG-supported searches, to compare RAG-generated summaries with the original text, and to reflect how RAG suggestions shape the research decisions. So this has important integrity implications. It makes AI use visible, discussable, and accessible. So rather than treating AI as a hidden risk factor for misconduct, we treat it as an object of learning, a tool students must learn to use critically and transparently. At the same time, carefully configuration of the system, such as limiting the generation of full text sections, helps maintain boundary between augmentation and substitution, preserving students' sense of intellectual ownership. So the conclusions, let me conclude with the main implications and limitations and future directions. Our findings show that part-time master students in the educational leadership program already integrate AI in their academic routines. Technological innovativeness and perceived AI objectivity strongly shape whether they see AI as useful. And qualitative data highlight that the students appreciate AI as a brainstorming and analytical companion, but worry about hallucination, unverifiable references, and the erosion of the authorship when text is reused verbatim. We argue that this is a part of a design problem. Generic chatbot trained on an opaque web data are not tailored to the program curriculum or integrity norms. So we believe that a program-specific RAG system grounded in the course literature, institutional policies, selected research, and even more, the context-specific environment of the program. Let me say something about that. Schools in Norway operate within a highly legalized environment, which means that principals frequently face situations requiring legal judgment, for instance. Although very few principals are trained lawyers, they are nonetheless expected to argue and justify their decisions in legal terms. An intellectually demanding task. AI has the potential to support school principals' work by helping principals identify legal sound arguments, relevant statutory references, and this legal content is anchored in the Norwegian legal system, a country-specific legal system, and you cannot use ChatGPT for this endeavor. However, the early versions of tools like ChatGPT were prone to producing incorrect or misleading legal content. In contrast, RAG-based systems can be restricted to vetted legal sources and policy documents and other legal sources, making their outputs more reliable. So we are just now trying to train our students in this endeavor, and future students in the educational leadership program will therefore be able to practice using RAG in legally complex scenarios. Our expectation is that such system will become a valuable resource for school leaders in Norway, and we are optimistic that RAG will prove increasingly useful in the years ahead. So this was my presentation. We acknowledge that our study has limitations. It examines students' use of AI tools. We did not implement and evaluate a full RAG systems within the program. We are just doing it now. We have started the process in the spring, and we follow up in this autumn. Future research should therefore design and test RAG-based institutional systems and study longitudinally how access to such system reshapes innovativeness, perceived objectivity, collective drive, and perceived utility. Critically, we need to know whether these shifts translate into improved thesis progressions, quality, students' experience of maintaining intellectual ownership of their own work. Overall, this question is no longer whether AI will be a part of thesis work. It already is. The real question is how universities can shape AI use so that the educationally productive and ethically defensible. So program-specific RAG infrastructure grounded in controlled knowledge bases and explicit normative frameworks offer one promising route. They allow institutions to turn a source of uncertainty into a more aligned, governable component of advanced professional learning. Thank you for listening.